of it still moving. Oh my god, it's still moving.
Jesus Christ.
Hi, my name is Phoenix and this is TFL Design, and we are on part 4 of my trip to Japan now. I promise I'll go through more cities this time, as the last one kind of ran a little bit long. So after Tokyo, we were on our way to Fuji, and along the way we took a train which was hilariously themed Thomas the Tank Engine. I don't know why Japan loves Thomas the Tank Engine that much, but there were a few ads for it all over, especially in this area. We also saw a Boruto train as well. But anyway, we rode it for quite a few hours. The sun was already setting on the way, and when we arrived, it was sort of at night. And so when we got in, I would have to say that this Airbnb was probably the best one. And starting here, we were telling ourselves that if we ever were to plan another Japan trip again, we promised ourselves to never stay at an Airbnb for just one day at a time, unless it was just like a transit city, because this Airbnb was absolutely gorgeous, and the view that we woke up to the next morning was just stunning. I'll talk more about the view later on in the video, but basically this Airbnb had 2 bedrooms with beds upstairs, and downstairs next to the living room there was an area where you could set up the tatami mats, where you can set up a sleeping area where you can sleep on the floor. It was super comfy, and the heating and everything was great. There was like a heater in every room. There was a more modernized heater in every room, so that wasn't a problem. Another sad thing is that in all of these Airbnbs, we never really got a chance to use the kitchens. Like, they had pots and dishes and everything, and this place had a full kitchen, but we never really brought anything home to cook. We did use the washer machines though. That was super important in between our stays. Although dryers left more to be desired, as sometimes they didn't have one, or it was a 2-in-1, and those 2-in-1s just take hours to dry. What was also cool about this day was that there was like a Shiba Inu dog sitting outside, sort of guarding the neighborhood, just watching us as we walked by. It was there when we came in, and it also glared at us when we left as well. That night we went to look for food and had some really amazing sushi and stuff. And I'm gonna give you a warning right now. Warning, 3, 2, 1 for some almost grotesque looking live fish sashimi. Warning, warning, warning. And yeah, it was still moving, which caught a few of my friends by surprise. Like, they didn't expect that to happen in this restaurant, but you know, it tasted really, really fresh. The view we woke up to the next morning was absolutely stunning. And here I even have a time lapse of that morning. We sort of missed sunrise. We didn't want to wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So the next city we arrived at was Takayama. And this city is known for its beef, I think. The beef here was kind of amazing. And almost on, yeah, I would say it's on par with Kobe beef, but not as expensive. We also were on our way to an onsen hotel. This onsen hotel, like the others, required us to take off our shoes at the front. It had a little machine to dispense alcohol as well as check our temperature.
This is a regular one.
And this was one of the first places that we went to that had quote-unquote character, in that the place we stayed in was very small. At least the one my husband and I stayed at. I heard the western one where my friend stayed at was slightly bigger, as it had beds. Ours was just literally a room with the mats on the floor, and they would just... At night during our dinner, they would prepare our mats for us to sleep on. Actually, during that day, I had like a major headache, and pharmacies were not a thing around here, so we had to ask someone at the front desk for some, like aspirin or something. The food, though, was really good. Like I said, the beef was amazing. As I've mentioned in the other videos, every onsen stay included a dinner as well as a breakfast. Since we always checked in around 3 p.m.-ish, we would go into the onsen first, maybe walk around town, and then have our dinner around 7 or 8-ish, and then wake up in the morning around 6, 7, or 8, depending on when they allow the time slots. We try to go for as late as possible. And then we check out by 10 or 11 a.m.
It's not a very stable field.
Did you enjoy the sound of that food? I figured I'd give you a little bit of that sound before I started narrating the next morning's breakfast again. The next morning, before checking into our next onsen hotel, we walked around the city, and it was sadly raining during the time, but we were able to see sort of like the old town and check out some of the older buildings and see how the areas would look like. Because it was so empty, there was a lot of picture taking opportunities. I guess here would be a good time to talk about the effects of the economy and the lack of tourists in Japan. during this time, there was a new strain of COVID or something, I believe, and people from mainland China were basically required to be quarantined an extra 2 weeks before being let out into the city. And so most mainland Chinese people did not go to Japan because it would require them to quarantine for 2 weeks and then take their vacation. So because of that, a lot of the cities in Japan while I was there did not have mainland Chinese people walking around. And because mainland Chinese tourists make up like a lot of Japan's tourism, a lot of Japan's tourism wasn't as robust, so there were less people and crowds in the cities, which you can see as a good thing. But at the same time, the economy suffers, as I found a lot of stores and areas that had once been super populated with tourists were sort of empty. We actually went to several places where there'd be almost no one walking around. It was sort of a ghost town and sort of depressing. And while it made for very easy opportunities to take pictures with no people in it, it was kind of sad to see shop owners closing after 4 hours of being open in the day, or having barely any customers go to them. There were times where I feel like my group of friends were the only people that they had the entire day. So in this city, we even stopped by a cat cafe. This would be the first time we went to animal cafe of any sort. I was trying to get my friends and husband to warm up to cats because I want a cat. We actually had to move onsens again, and funnily enough, the place we moved to was literally around the corner, right next door to the onsen we were at previously. The place we were at previously was pretty small and didn't even have a large onsen themselves. They actually had us go to a neighboring building to do it. But in this second onsen that we went to within the same city was a lot bigger, and as you can see from this video, a lot swankier. What was funny was the entire place was run by mostly elder women, and so while we took the elevator, they insisted on running up the stairs to greet us so that they didn't take the elevator with us. And so just having this elderly woman like running around showing us our rooms and even pouring tea for us for some reason, and showing us around our own suite was kind of different and funny. This was the first onsen stay where they insisted we stay in the room and drink the tea that they were offering us. Not that it ruined our stay or anything, but it was kind of raining the entire time we were here. Just drizzling a little bit, not pouring or anything. But it did make the streets seem even emptier. I'm not sure if that contributed to why the streets were empty, or if it is because of the tourist situation I talked about earlier. We had delicious meats on a stick.
Oh, it smells so good.
And of course, once again that night, we had a delicious kaiseki as part of the onsen package. We had hita beef again, but this time in sort of a kind of like shabu shabu or hot pot.
The beef shabu shabu. Shabu shabu, do you know?
Oh, shabu shabu.
And once again, because my husband and I had the traditional Japanese form of the suite, we had to have our bedding set up by the staff, which we got to see them do fully. As you can see, these streets were extremely empty at night, and so while we were able to take a lot of nice photos, it was kind of sad and depressing to see nothing open and no one walking around. The following day, we were moving to another city called Shirakawa-go, which was in a much colder region, and we were going to an area with even more character. And by more character, I mean a place that had straw roofs and things would be more traditional, such as no heaters. You'd only have like one small space heater. I would say the food up in Shirakawa-go was lacking a little bit in that, you know, it is a very remote place and you basically come here to look at the cute little huts, which we would be living in. This place has a very historical root, and all of these buildings have been here for like a very long time. And they upkeep them and keep the old traditional ways, and they don't install a lot of modern technology into them, purposely keeping them without insulation and stuff, which I'll explain in a little bit how that was a little bit difficult for us to get used to. While there were a noticeable amount of tourists here, it's definitely a place that doesn't handle a lot of people to begin with, because the only place to live around here are these little huts. There are no hotels. And so the one that we lived in had a bunch of other small groups, as you can see in this hallway and all these slippers. Everyone that lived within this area had like a little room in which they would prepare the tatami mats and everything for us while we were at dinner. The only way to heat these places were through like tiny space heaters that we all ended up huddling around for warmth. And then they had a heated floor mat, which went under our sleeping mats. But at night, because the space heaters were run by kerosene or something, you had to shut them off so that, you know, no accidents and fires start. So it was freezing during the night, and we were all burritoed up. And because there was nothing to do around and everything was closed by like 6 o'clock, after dinner, we just rolled up into our mats and basically went to sleep by 8 o'clock because there was nothing to do. Just stepping out of our rooms and going to the bathroom was freezing because the entire house was not heated. It was just those little space heaters, which every tiny room had. And so while my friends had like a terrible time in the cold, I was giggling the entire time because of the fact that throughout this entire trip, we had so much bougie staying environments that I was happy that we were now in a more traditional and character-driven location. During the night, it actually had a snowstorm, and so we woke up in the morning to this entire town covered in snow, to a very picturesque and like postcard-like area. We took a lot of photos and videos, and definitely noted that these roofs look a lot cuter with the layers of snow on top. I know I've been milking these Japan videos for a while now, but I promise the next one is the final one, as it'll be the final cities I went to. So stay tuned and be sure to check out my next videos and my next locations. Comment and subscribe if you want to stay along with my journey. Bye-bye.